This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports. You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host Keith Angle on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good evening, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk's College Football Huddle. And we have finally reached, other than the very important Army-Navy game this weekend, we finally reached the end of the regular season. And again, I'm not making light of Army-Navy, by the way. They deserve the stage they're going to have this weekend pretty much to themselves on the FBS level. But we've reached the end of the regular season, and we had some fun championship games, which we'll talk about last week. We'll talk about the final rankings. You know, I don't have a lot of gripes other than, I don't think we put enough. And again, this is only going to hold up for another year. They don't put enough stock into championship. People playing their championship games, conference championship games. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll look at the final rankings. We'll look at some of the bowl matchups. We'll look at the Heisman race, coaching carousel in full bloom. Dion to Colorado, shocking that they think this will be a fit, and he would go to a coaching graveyard like Colorado. If he turns that program around, then he is a miracle worker. We'll be joined by Jim Biringer from the Mad Radio Network in just a few minutes, and possibly by Mark Mancini from Mancini Media at the 7:30 block, but unsure about that as he is busy with his multimedia empire and other shows going on. I will say, John DeLon, I don't know if you're here, buddy, but somehow you managed to comment, and if you come in, I'll ask you this again. Somehow you managed to comment, like sometimes the day before the show when I post. I don't know how I have posts in my StreamYard feed before I've even started the show. You got to tell me how you do that. So not that I have a problem with it. I'm just curious. Augustin, good evening to you. Good to have you with us. Our Oregon Duck fans. Sorry, your Ducks. Your Ducks will be in an interesting bowl. Not one of my favorites. We'll talk to Jim Biringer about, the final rankings, the semifinal matchups. We'll talk a little bit of Heisman, what other bowl games kind of stand out to us, and also a little bit of coaching information. Good evening to Carlos, the Mad New Yorker's with us tonight. Blowing my phone up all day today about Aaron Judge and some Mets stuff. We'll talk about all of that maybe on Friday. Carlos, send me a text with what you want to do Friday, would you? Guys, I'm working on about 30 minutes sleep because of a situation that came up last night. Everything's cool, but it was a long night and a long day working today. So anyway, we'll manage to kind of get through this and probably go to bed. And good evening to Alan Perales, and I'll give you a little plug tonight. Jim Biringer will be coming up with us, and just after that, I think I'm not sure. Alan, you can tell me what time. I forget now. Alan's got his Wednesday night roundtable on Let's Talk Sports. We're here on Northeast Streaming Sports, but we do share some of the content with Let's Talk Sports, so we're happy to cross-pollinate the networks, and I'm happy to give my good friend Alan a plug here, even though he is a little off board when it comes to some stuff in baseball, which we won't talk about tonight. College football show. But Alan, we may be talking about it Friday morning. We'll see how that goes. Or Sunday at the latest. I just get more and more ammunition every time you post something, though. Shouldn't beat you up and not give you a chance to respond, so I'll stop. I wonder what you want to get into your topics today as well. I'll give you one. There we go. It goes live at 9. That's what I thought. I didn't have I couldn't put your little note you had with that graphic. So go Ducks. Jim agrees me in the ground, by the way. Well, yeah, Jim can be wrong too. I mean, look at Jim Biringer is a great friend of the show and knows a lot about hockey, knows a lot about college football. And, you guys are both wrong on this Ranger situation. And, we're not going to talk about it tonight. But we'll find time to talk about it here soon. Tonight, guys, I want your comments. Are you happy with this Final Four? And I'm going to get into it with Jim a little bit. Georgia, no gripe, obviously. Michigan, no gripe. They both won their conference championships. I don't even have a problem with TCU. Played a really fun, exciting game, I thought. Probably the most exciting game I thought of the weekend. Losing to Kansas State, but I'm okay with them getting that third spot. I know probably the SEC elitists aren't. They think Alabama ought to be in there. My problem was a little bit with Ohio State. And we'll talk about that with Jim Biringer. I mean, I got some interesting comparisons that we'll throw up either when Jim's with us or even after. Why was Ohio State immediately eliminated and Ohio State taken in? An Ohio State team with one loss. They both lost to one team. That's the first little nugget I'll give you too. Ohio State lost to one team. USC lost to one team. There's some other interesting facts in here. And I'm not saying UCM necessarily should be in, but why are they 10th? And kudos to Sean Beamer, by the way, and the South Carolina Gamecocks, who ruined two teams' seasons and chances at the playoff, beating both Clemson and Tennessee. Clemson's got to be kicking themselves up and down, their practice field because they lost a golden opportunity. There's no way anybody will ever convince me that they would not have been number 4. Obviously, if they had not lost to South Carolina. But again, if there's a lot of this, I can tell you that if one family member of mine had different anatomy, they'd be called something else. It's probably not terribly politically correct. I probably should not have brought that up, but whatever. I also, with the 12-team playoff coming up in 2 years, I'm only going to have one more year to gripe about this. Not enough emphasis put on conference championships. I don't have a problem with TCU. Their overall body of work warrants them being in this field. There'd be other years where I'd tell you they don't belong in there. But should Ohio State be totally a shoo-in for that number 3 spot like they basically were? I mean, the way you saw the rankings come out the week before it was over, you pretty much knew Ohio State was going to slide in someplace if there was a loss by either TCU or USC. Listen, TCU's probably lucky USC lost. I saw something about UT beating top 4 top-rated teams. If they beat Clemson, that's 5 this year. Ranked right now, that is, Carlos? Or at the time. That's the problem with these type of stats. Again, it could be that teams that are ranked now. But there's a lot of teams that are ranked during the course of the year that fall off the map. And then we say, oh, so-and-so beat ranked teams. Let's take a quick look, see if I can tell before Jim comes in here. Who's ranked here? I hope we're talking about the football ranking. So Mississippi State, I'm going to say they played them and beat them. That's 1. And that's South Carolina. LSU's 2. Alabama's 3. I don't know who the 4th one is, though. Oh, maybe Ole Miss? Did they play Ole Miss? I don't remember. Ole Miss isn't ranked anyway. So I only see 3 here of the final 25. I could be missing somebody, Carlos. You can help me out there if I'm missing somebody. Listen, Ohio State only beat one ranked team. One. Notre Dame, who finished 8-4. CA, good evening. Great to have you with us here tonight as you travel around the world with your dart tournaments. I'm not sure if that's what you're doing now, but if you are, good luck with that. Kenny said, I thought it was about winning. Depends on what we're talking about. What are we talking about? In what context? Again, so tell me, why is the USC penalized for playing an extra game? If the season ended last week, they'd have been in the playoff. They play an extra game. Ohio State didn't earn the right even to play an extra game, and USC is punished. Understand that there are times where that helps a team as well, and maybe rightfully so. If your season has ended before mine because you lost badly to your arch rival, then why are you a shoo-in and I'm falling to 10th? There's John DeLon. You got my note. I don't know how you do it, John. I hope you realize when I haven't responded to your comments sometimes when you have commented the day before I started the show. I'm not sure how you do it. I'd love to know. Let me see if you get a couple more. Conference championships. What'd I say, Carlos? Oh, why are we laughing at conference championships? Conference championships are very important still. Because USC lost twice to a team that is the 10th best team in the SEC. Well, that's not true. First of all, that's not true. Come on. I'll jump right on that right now before I bring in Jim Biringer. Let me jump this quickly because, John, I'm not going to let you get away with that. You're going to tell me Utah. And we'll let Jim listen and kind of weigh in when he comes in, I guess. So you're going to tell me Utah's let's see. Here's the teams in the SEC that are better than Utah. Georgia, yes. Tennessee, not so sure. South Carolina, not so sure. Kentucky, I'm a big Kentucky fan, but no. Florida, no. Missouri, no. Vanderbilt, no. LSU, no. Bama, I'll give you Bama. I'll even give you Tennessee. That's 3. Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Auburn, no. They're not better than any of those teams. So at worst, they're the 4th best team in the SEC. And they don't play there anyway, so it's irrelevant. Good evening, Jim Biringer. I've already got my SEC guys riling me up tonight.
Look at that. Already starting stuff. Come on, guys. Come on.
How are you tonight? Well, John likes to stir it up, so we take a little bit of it. Let me just get a couple of these comments quick before we jump into it. How are you tonight, by the way?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I am fabulous. I've been talking a little bit. Is there anything here we want to talk about? Obviously, the final rankings. Not a lot to argue about. I do have a little bit of gripe, and this little issue that I have will go away after next year anyway.
Wait. Shout out though. Big shout out. Nice hoodie tonight. Everybody knows who's watched the show, knows my girlfriend Amanda went to the U. So big Hurricanes fan. She was there when all the championships were being won. I'm a big Miami fan too. I know you are. So I just want to give her a shout out.
Yeah, because that's the last time we're going to talk about the U, probably.
Yeah, exactly.
So my pet peeve is, Ohio State slides in there, and we knew that if there was a loss, TCU is probably lucky USC lost. In my mind, I think TCU might have got left out if USC hadn't lost before them and lost badly. But there's no credence given to. If the season ended and there were no conference championship games, USC would have been the 4th team in, and they're penalized for earning the right to play in a championship game while Ohio State's home, watching games on TV. And that kind of irks me a little bit. I know it won't be a factor once we go to 12, but I don't get it. And again, you can make an argument that Ohio State belongs in, but how does Ohio State fall all the way, or USC fall all the way to 10, but Ohio State jumps up to 4?
Here you go. It's 2 losses, and they lost twice to the same team.
Hold on. Go ahead. I'm
They
sorry.
lost twice to the same team. Okay, the first time it was only a field goal or a 2-point conversion. Second time was a complete beating in the championship game. That's the
Ohio State
difference.
did that last game they played.
Oh yeah, they did big time. Like, see, that's the problem. Like, I agree. Like, Ohio State backs in. Are you going to penalize? Are you penalizing USC? Yes, but
That's part of it.
But that's part of it because they already had one loss going in, and they knew that because you knew Ohio State was just sitting right there at 5. Didn't matter who was at 5. I think whoever was at 5 was getting in if USC lost.
Oh, I agree. I mean, they put Ohio State there for a reason, right? Thank God they didn't put Alabama. You know, all the Alabama fans, sorry, John. I mean, he's an LSU fan, but he's an SEC elitist, which we know. Thank God they didn't rank them 5th because they would have put them in the playoff, and it would have been a joke. I'm sorry for that team. They may very well be the second best team in the country, but this year they don't deserve to be in the playoff.
They weren't a top 4 team all year. They weren't. I mean, think about it, right? Everybody wants to talk, and to me personally, I think this was just a publicity tour for people to have something to talk about on Sunday morning, 3 hours before the rankings came out, because I think that's what it was. Did Nick Saban in his heart of hearts really think his team deserved to go into the playoff this year? I don't think so. The team barely beat Texas A&M, barely beat Texas with a backup quarterback. You know, the Ole Miss game, Mississippi State, like, you can go down the list of the close wins that they had. Yeah, you talk about close losses. Okay. A lot of teams had a lot of close losses. They're not ranked higher.
Yeah. Winning matters.
Winning matters. And how you win. Winning matters, and how you win still matters, even though it's not supposed to matter. It matters. And
shouldn't the strength of the people that you're playing matter as well then?
Exactly. I mean, you look at this is why I think TCU is still in and ranked 3rd, because they had that murderer's row at one time. They played and beat 4 straight top 25 teams in a row and had to come back and do it. That's why they're 3rd.
Well, I also don't think they want Ohio State and Michigan playing.
No, I don't think so either. But
I don't think there was any chance TCU was ever going to be 4th.
No, but I mean.
And then speaking of that, Jim, by the way, I mean, isn't Georgia kind of being penalized here by Ohio State getting that 4th spot? Because this is a team now that probably talent-wise is as the closest to Georgia. Maybe they haven't played to that talent yet, but they're going to get healthy in the next month. Georgia kind of loses out here a little bit by having to play maybe the second best team in that. Again, record-wise, I get, but talent-wise, you got a month to practice. Who knows what Ohio State could throw out there? And I still don't think they should be in myself. But again, who else you got to put in there? That's the problem with this.
All right, so TCU, Michigan winner plays Georgia.
I think Georgia beats Ohio State, yes, but I do think they're going to have a much tougher time than they would have had against Michigan or TCU.
What I'm saying is if we don't want to put anybody at the 4th spot, we're just going to play TCU versus Michigan. Winner gets Georgia. So
well, no, we can't give teams.
No, we can't.
We're going to do that in 2 years, which I don't like either.
No, I don't like that either. But here's the thing. Georgia, yeah, maybe they may be a disadvantage, but they have a de facto home game where they've scored 99 points this season against Oregon and LSU, and they have their backyard right there. They feed off that crowd. There's a reason why they were the number 1 team. They get to pick where they go. I think that's why they needed to win that game, because I think if they lost to LSU, Michigan has the number 1 seed is playing in Atlanta.
Agreed. I agree.
So They needed to be in Atlanta, because who knows what would have happened if they're not in Atlanta. And I think that's their advantage going into this game. Yeah, Ohio State's rested. Jackson Smith and Jigma's not playing. We'll see who else opts out. But we know with this Ohio State team, we've seen guys opt out and guys step up. But I think you could say the same thing for Georgia, too. I think they're going to be ready, and they're going to understand what's going to be ready to go. And I think it's going to be a good game. I think both games are going to be good. And we'll see what happens, see where the chips may fall. But again, you know, the fact they got a home game, I think, balances out the fact that, they have to play Ohio State.
They are the best team, I think. Michigan's still got to prove to me they're better than they were last year. Michigan's got a much better shot this year, but they still got to prove it on the field.
I got a question for you. I got a question because I was thinking about this, right? So they talked about, they're talking about Michigan and how they want Georgia and they're using it as motivation and they're going to be ready for next year. Do you think that could hinder them like it hindered Ohio State against Michigan in that final game?
Never look ahead,
right?
Never look ahead. Only play the team in front of you because you're right. It's not just Ohio State. I think it happened at Clemson against South Carolina. They're already looking ahead to the ACC championship game, and they stepped on their own feet and cost themselves a shot at the playoff. So, yeah, don't look ahead ever.
Yeah, no, I just throwing it out there because I know Desmond Howard on game day, the week of the Ohio State game, Ohio State was making a big deal. We got to beat Michigan. We're going to put this behind us. Yeah, it worked in the past when they had to play Clemson. But I think Michigan is they may be looking ahead to Georgia, but they're in such a good spot because they know what they needed to do from last year and not to stumble this year. And I hope we get that matchup because those are the two best teams right now.
Let me get a couple of comments here. I know John's been busy here, and I know I left some of it out. BS, they lost to Florida. That goes back to my Utah comments. Yes,
but it was the final play of the game.
About a year ago, they lost on a final play of the game. They're like up by a point. So, okay, I'll give you Florida beat them. So they're the fifth best team. You said 10 teams are better than them. So I still
think Utah's still better than Florida.
Good evening, Dave Gayette. What else you got here, John, for me? I'm not going to cut you off, but we're going to go out and talk about a couple other things. Face it, the Pac-12 is a bunch of weak West Coast sissies. 6 teams in the top 25, John. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not telling you it's as good as the SEC overall. I'm not.
Wait.
But 6 teams in the top 25 tells you 3 teams in the Big Ten.
Oregon State, 1-11. They're what, 14th ranked now?
Yep.
There you go. And they beat their rival in the Civil War game.
Again, we can't give credit to anybody outside of the Southeast Conference. So, again, Utah lost to Florida. I know we said that. Who's the best? Come on. That's not how you do math, John. Stop. Oh, my gosh. Please.
So what is he going to say about the Big 12, who had a great conference this year, too? I mean, you go up and down. I mean, mediocre teams. We're going to find out. But
I mean, is Vanderbilt the worst team in the SEC? They beat 2 teams. So are they better than those 2 teams? On those days they were, but are they the 6th ranked team in the SEC or whatever? No. Again, I come across like I hate the SEC. The SEC is the best conference in the league, but there's in the country, there's a lot of good football being played elsewhere, including the Pac-12 this year, who I was really hard on before the season.
I thought the Pac-12 was some of the best football I've seen this year, along with the Big 12. I thought those games were very, very entertaining. I think some of the mediocrity in the SEC, made it maybe be a down year, and I think people took notice that the Big 12 and the Pac-12 have better games and better teams. I mean, there was a lot of good football. Pac-12 after dark, if you didn't stay up, catch the highlights. There's a lot of good games this year.
Lot. Old guys like me, those 10:30 games are tough.
Oh man, tough.
Hard for me to make the halftime. Jeez.
Yeah, tough games. That's what the highlights are for usually the next day.
Right. John, I'm not going to argue with it that Bama's better than TCU. I won't argue with that. If they play 10 times, Alabama's going to win 9 probably, if not 10. But unfortunately, the way they put this playoff together, Alabama doesn't get that chance. In 2 years, they will. And they would have this year, obviously, if there was a 12.
If they took care of business, if they had just beat LSU, they were in the championship game.
Correct. Or Tennessee. I think either one, right?
No, well, Tennessee was a West game. But
that's right. That was a cross. Yeah, cross.
That was a cross-conference game. But if they had beat LSU, they're in the SEC title game.
Bama would not be favored on a neutral field against Georgia. I do not believe.
Georgia would be favored.
I'll give you the rest of them. Not by a lot over Ohio State or Michigan, though. Probably double digits against TCU.
Yeah, definitely double. But the problem is you base it off that Bama didn't cover. Bama didn't cover against these double-digit favorites. They were favorites against LSU and Tennessee and didn't win.
I mean, they're still a good football team. They just did not play to their standard this year. I mean, and Nick Saban admitted to it. He said, we didn't play as well as we could. We didn't coach as good as we could. I expect them to be back with both guns blazing next year.
The key for me is going to be seeing what this Alabama team does in this bowl game at the Sugar Bowl. I mean, he hasn't really played well in New Orleans at these Sugar Bowls. We saw in years past that led to their national championship the last time they missed a playoff. Guys decided to play in that game instead of sit out, and that led to them winning the following year. Do we see guys sit out this year, or are they guys going to come and play? Because that's going to be a big factor in all this.
I got to tell you, as a guy who likes to put a couple of bucks on, a game here and there, it just drives me crazy when it comes to bowl season. You don't know who's playing because of the transfer portal, because of sitting out to protect yourself for the draft. I mean, you bet a game, and then you find out, their three best players aren't even playing because they decided that day they aren't playing.
Yeah.
You're right about Clemson, wildly inconsistent. Listen, they found their quarterback, obviously, and I'm surprised. I'm really surprised that Dabo was so stubborn all year and didn't go to this kid sooner. Really surprised.
Well, didn't he play the second game of the season? And he played well.
Yeah, he didn't play well.
But he played well in mop-up duty, I guess, in the first game.
Well, he showed against North Carolina, who doesn't have a very good defense, obviously. But this kid is a really good quarterback, and he's a quarterback because DJ's hit the portal already. So plus Colorado has Dion, so there's that. Listen, since Alan brought this up, and I'll get the rest of your guys' comments here in a bit. I don't get this. If I'm Deion Sanders, it's not about money. I don't need the money. Why am I going to a graveyard for coaches? They've been irrelevant except for maybe 1 year in the last 20. How does Deion Sanders think this is a good career move for him?
Because he's Deion Sanders. Because he's got
his number one recruits going with him. The cornerback, I can't remember his name now, but he's going to go with him. He hired the Kent State coach away to be his offensive coordinator. Maybe he can make this work over there, but I
think he will, because I think he'll be able to get the recruits because it's Deion Sanders, and he knows. Here's the thing: I don't think people realize he knows how to use that NIL to his advantage.
Yeah, that's true, and the portal.
So he knows how to use that stuff, and I think that's he's got going for him, and he's Deion Sanders. So I mean, look, who wouldn't want to go play for Deion Sanders?
Well, he doesn't want me. I'm 63 years old.
Well, I'm saying college kids.
Again, John, this doesn't mean anything to me. The NFL, I had this conversation with a lot of people. They talk about how Ohio State never puts quarterbacks in the NFL, and these guys aren't good coaches because of XYZ and what happens in the NFL. They're not there to put guys in the NFL. They're there to win college football games. And I want to talk about the best college football players, not who's going to be best on the next level. We'll have that conversation, but to me, it's a totally different conversation.
Yeah, we're not talking about the best Sunday players right now. We're talking about
Stetson Bennett's is one of the finalists for the Heisman. Great example. Stetson Bennett's not getting drafted most likely, and if he does, it's going to be very, very late.
He's going to be like 6th rounder.
Yeah, but he's one of the best college football players in the country. Not the best, and not in the top 10. But he's shown he is one of the better players in the country.
When Tebow did what he did at Florida, did anybody think he was going to be a good Sunday player? No. What?
Josh McDaniels did.
Yeah, well, but everybody said at the time Tim Tebow was one of the best college quarterbacks ever to play the game. But he was a good Saturday player. He was a good college player.
Yes, and through the years, there's been a lot. Everybody talks about Heisman Trophy winners who flop on the next level, and it's not as prevalent as it used to be.
No.
Back in my youth, a lot of them flopped. But it wasn't about who was going to be great on the next level, as you just said. It was about who was the best college football player in that year.
Well, and I tried to get an answer from you see all these college football experts put out this thing. To me, like for the Heisman Trophy, it's turned into a quarterback award. Like, if we're really going to do it, who's the best player in college football?
This year?
This year. Like, is it a quarterback?
It's hard. It's a quarterback award most times. Yeah. So yes, but it might be Corum.
Yeah. Blake Corum's not even going to New York, but.
It depends. Is it numbers? Yeah, and everybody looks at it differently, right? Is it numbers? Is it a great leader? I mean, if you just want to talk about leadership and toughness and great college football player, I haven't seen a better one than Duggan this year either. Because
no, exactly.
he didn't really even play his best game by far Saturday, but he still had a huge impact on them nearly coming back and winning that game.
I mean,
without
his
best
legs.
stuff.
I mean, the legs did it for him to get him to overtime. So
How about the heart, right? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, this guy was just like, yeah, forget it, guys, stay away, man. I'm good. Like, let's go. We want to win this thing. And I was just so surprised that they didn't go to quarterback sneaks on the goal line.
My only gripe, that was a great game. Sonny Dykes, I really do like Sonny Dykes, but you got to put the ball in your best player's hands.
Yeah, and Duggan was your best player.
That's what unless he was so gassed he couldn't do it.
I mean, but a sneak on the one?
I guess you get 4 guys behind him and push him in. You can do that. So
yeah, I mean Reggie, but we all know that Reggie Bush.
I think they scored at least once on that final series. The one run by the running back, I thought he was in. He was laying on guys' legs. It looked like to me. And then they said, well, and they never did explain the play because he fumbled it, if you remember.
Yeah.
And if he fumbled it, then the ball was over the plane, and he also got it back. So
that's a touchdown.
It had to be a touchdown.
Yeah.
Well, it's either not a fumble because he fumbled after
he was down.
Well, after crossed the plane, so it was a touchdown.
It's still a touchdown, so it doesn't matter. Once the ball crosses the plane, it's not a fumble.
The officials did a horrible job of not explaining anything of what happened on that play.
Yeah.
What other? Well, who do you like? We got a lot of time. We won't talk about who we like yet. We got a lot of time to talk about the college football playoff. What other bowl games? And it's a little while before we get to some of them. I got a couple that I like. I really like the USC Tulane matchup.
I like that game. I like that game. I like all the New Year's 6 games this year.
They're going to light up the scoreboard in that game, let me tell you.
That's going to be a fun game to watch.
Who else stands out as a couple of good games?
I mean, always for me, Rose Bowl. I like Utah, Penn State. That should be a fun game. Yep. I think Utah's going to look in, try to finish the deal like they did last year. Probably should have won that game against Ohio State last year, but just couldn't close the deal. I like that team. Utes. How about Gator Bowl? Notre Dame and South Carolina. Remember, this was the spot where Marcus Freeman came in last year. This is where he took over. So see what Notre Dame can do against a red-hot South Carolina team. I think that's a good game. Texas, Washington should be a fun matchup as well.
I like that one as well. I like Tennessee, Clemson, and the Orange Bowl looks like a fun matchup.
Like I said, I think all the New Year's 6 bowl games are really good.
Very interesting matchup too in the I think it's the Fenway Bowl, which is one of the bowls I wish would go away, I guess.
Was that Cincinnati? Yeah, Louisville. That should be a decent game.
With Satterfield going to Cincinnati to coach, I doubt he's coaching in this game. And Luke Fickell gone. It's going to be a very interesting matchup of 2 teams and heading in little different directions. And Louisville gets a new coach in Jeff Brom, their former standout quarterback, leaving Purdue to take that job too. So kind of an interesting dynamic in that game. So there's some interesting games to be played. I waffle on this, and I talked with Larry Sorensen about it from Wake Forest last week. I beat up the fact we got 44 bowl games. But I understand why it's an advantage. It's a reward for some kids, and I know John's going to say it's participation trophy stuff. But the advantage is they get to practice for another 3, 4, 5, whatever weeks it is, whenever your bowl game is. And that's a big advantage for these programs going in the next year to have that extra practice time that the teams that don't go bowling won't have.
No,
so
I agree.
Some value. I hate watching the games because, it's just filler for ESPN's schedule, I think.
I think Oklahoma and Florida State should be a pretty decent game.
That should be a good game. I'm sure Alan Perales will be happy that you brought that one up.
Wisconsin and Oklahoma State, actually. That should be decent. Is Fickell coaching in that game?
I do not believe he is. Again, I got to check this out. Normally, when these coaches leave before the bowl games, they aren't coaching these days, which I think between the players hitting the portal or saving themselves for the draft and coaches moving, I mean, Jesus. I mean, it's not going to be long before some of these teams won't be able to field a team to play in a bowl game. Well, we had it during COVID. We had a problem, right? Was it Texas A&M, I think?
Yeah, Rutgers snuck in.
Yeah, they were supposed to play Wake Forest, I think, in the Gator Bowl, and they couldn't because they couldn't field a team. It was a little different because of COVID, but still. Speaking of the coaches, what do you think? The job that was, what was the most significant hire of this coaching carousel so far in your mind?
Outside it, I mean, obviously, like the most influential was probably Dion to Colorado, but I think Luke Fickell to Wisconsin is really good. And I think he just got somebody to just come with him today, the offensive coordinator now. I just saw it before.
Well, Dion did. Dion
No, but I think
Fickell
Luke
did?
Fickell got somebody to come with him today that was high ranking, like a high offensive coordinator to come with him to Wisconsin. I think that's going to be a great move this year for Wisconsin to bring in a guy like Luke Fickell who knows, just the Big Ten and the makeup of the Big Ten.
Yeah, I like mine is Matt Rule. Matt Rule going to Nebraska, I think, is going to have a huge impact. And, college football will be better when Nebraska is better again. And I think he may be able to restore some of that luster to that program, get the recruits, those big burly linemen to stay closer to home and not,
Oh, Phil Longo, who's bringing.
Oh, yeah.
He's bringing Phil Longo from North Carolina with him to Wisconsin. So the Wisconsin Badgers are going to look a lot different than they had in the last 30 years. They're going to be. It's going to be a more wide open Wisconsin team now. But I like Luke Fickell. I mean, Matt Rule going to Nebraska too. I think he's such a good college coach when he was there. He was with Baylor before he made the jump. But Luke Fickell's one wherever he's went. I mean, he's not going to turn the program around right away. But in a couple of years, Wisconsin's going to be back to being Wisconsin. I think. Just what he did with Cincinnati, making them like a mainstay, turning that program around. He knows how to recruit. He gets the right people around him. I think that's a good hire.
There was talk about Jim Leonard staying on there as a defensive coordinator. I didn't think that was a great idea when he was one of the candidates for the job. He announced today he was leaving, but I thought that was a weird scenario if they were going to keep him there.
Yeah.
Let me get to some comments here before we because I know one of your big fans here. I've been missing Rick's comment. Yes, we will get to hockey. We just got to free up some time on Sundays. And certainly we know Rick's feelings about the college football playoff and the Georgia Bulldogs. They're the best team right now, Rick. I can't argue. Bama's been favored in all but 3 games of Nick Saban's tenure. I don't know. Keeping track of this, but I don't doubt that. But that first year, they weren't that great. I'm wondering if that stat's even correct, but I'll take your word for it, Alan. You're the ombudsman here for this show. Very young Georgia team still. You listen, Georgia is Alabama now.
Yeah.
Georgia's Alabama. They're just reloading, and Kirby Smart is showing that he can do it at the same level as Nick Saban. Now he's got to do it for a long period of time.
He's got to win 5 national championships?
Nick Saban's the GOAT. I keep saying it. People disagree with me. He's won more national championships than anybody.
Right.
And he's done it in an era that I don't think it's as easy to do it.
No. So,
got to do it a little longer, but he's certainly showing that he's one of the great ones. Rumors are starting to surface that Colorado is moving to the Big 12. They have been talking about that a lot lately, John. I think it's a better fit for Colorado. Big 12's definitely probably going to look to fortify, whether Colorado fortifies them or not. At least it brings them back to their roots.
Yeah, exactly.
I wouldn't doubt that will happen.
That's actually, if you think about it, though, if Colorado goes back to the Big 12 with the teams that are coming in, the teams are going out, Colorado actually could be a pretty decent program, especially with the expanded playoff. Now you can bank yourself on an at-large bid.
I wish you guys would stop using, because I got all over John Allen a couple of weeks ago for using a participation trophy analogy when it comes to the expansion of the playoffs and whatnot. Nobody's getting a participation trophy that's in these top 12. They've earned their right to stake a claim to being in the playoff, right? Yes, they need to win their games. There are no participation trophies. If you were giving these kids who, you expanded this thing to 200 teams and you gave all the teams that lost trophies, well, then that's a participation trophy. We're talking about the best teams in the country. We have to use a different
if
terminology.
if we were expanding this thing to like 24 teams, then I'd be like, all right, participation trophy.
Yeah, listen, nobody's a bigger opponent of the participation trophy syndrome in this country, but this isn't it. It's a bad analogy. And I got all over John for doing it a couple weeks ago, Alan, so I got to get on you for doing it. Dion wants to prove to Florida that they made a mistake. Florida State, right? First of all, I don't think Dion was even in the running there. Maybe he was. Maybe he was, because he got the job about the same time he went to Jackson State. I guess Mike Norvell got the job. I'm surprised he didn't wait. Norvell, maybe he thinks Norvell's got it turned around there. Maybe that's why he didn't wait. Dion hired Mike Zimmer. Interesting. Did not see that yet. I'm assuming that's whom he's talking about. Former Vikings coach. Very good defensive coordinator. Pure nonsense. Coaching wins games as well, by the way, guys. You forget about coaching. Talent doesn't always win. If that's the case, Ohio State would be in the final every single year. Tom Brady was a career backup, not a career backup. He competed and played in a lot of games, by the way. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, but at Michigan, he was not the number one guy.
No, him and Drew Henson battled it out, but Tom Brady started plenty of games at Michigan. He wasn't a career backup.
Drew Henson was the last guy to win at Ohio State, though.
He didn't have a great relationship with crap. I'm forgetting the Michigan coach now at the time. Crap.
Was it not Bo?
But it was after. No, it came after Gary Moeller. It'll come to me. He had a horrible relationship with him while he was in school, but I know when he finally went back, and it was like 20 years, 18 years. Maybe it was somewhere 15, 18 years. Tom Brady never went back to Michigan. And when he went back, he credited Lloyd Carr. That finally came to me. Lloyd Carr was the coach. With helping him because, Tom Brady needed a chip on his shoulder forever. And he played with that chip that Lloyd Carr put there forever. So he gave him credit for making his career. We'll see about that.
We'll see about that one.
Maybe
you never know. All they got to do is be 6-6. So.
Right, and CA, I agree. They could be bowling, but Connecticut's bowling this year too. So
let's be honest.
I don't understand the comment, but I will agree that it was Belichick coaching up. Belichick and his coaches coaching up Tom Brady that made Tom Brady Tom Brady. And Tom Brady, by the way. Tom Brady, listen, and again, we're not going to talk so much about the NFL. Tom Brady's not the most talented guy who ever came out of college. He didn't get drafted where he got drafted because he was great and nobody knew it. He made himself into what he was.
Yeah, exactly.
So there should be a separate quarterback award. I don't know. Why? Well, there is, by the way, there is a quarterback award.
Yeah, there is.
I can't remember what it's called now, but there's a quarterback award, there's a lineman award, there's a running back award. They've all got their own awards, and then you've got the Heisman for the best player. Give me a pick. I'm picking. I think Caleb Williams.
I think Caleb Williams won it. My heart wants Max Duggan.
Yeah, my guess is if none of the ballots had gone in before last week, then Duggan would have had a better shot.
Yeah.
Stop caring about the Heisman after Sam Bradford beat out Tim Tebow, then Tebow beat Bradford, and then Eddie game. Well,
yeah, but the Heisman Trophy winner usually doesn't do well in the national championship.
Yeah, that's true. TCU is more about speed than physicality. I don't know. I saw a pretty physical team play Saturday.
Yeah, I did too.
I know what you're saying. I agree they got a lot of speed, but I saw a pretty physical football team. It's starting with their quarterback. The non-Utes going, I don't know what that means. Florida State versus Oklahoma. There you go. It's money for the school as well. If they play, I guess we're talking about the extra bowl games. I agree. Look, there's a reason to play them, but I'm not watching them. Some of them I will if I got an interest, but if it's a bad matchup, why would I watch?
Exactly.
Another value is also preseason rankings. I don't know about that. Black hole portal. Not just coaches, players. Yeah, I think I said that. Players opting out due to the draft, and players who enter the portal are not playing in these bowl games either.
Nope, coaches.
college football will be better when Nebraska isn't a Division I thing. Being a TCU fan, Alan. Well, he's not a TCU fan. First of all, John, he's an Oklahoma fan, and it's not about. You guys got to come up with a different analogy. It's just wrong. But Basement Bob, I'm not getting sued. I haven't brought up the 16-team playoff even once tonight. Got to get Basement Bob on the show. Apparently, Davey O'Brien. Thank you, Alan, for the Davey O'Brien Award. I could not come up with that name. Oh God! All the Lewis versus Lowe. What the hell is what is he smoking today? He's blowing up my phone all day. Oh my God! Stetson Bennett won the blue. What is that? That is an actual award. I did not know that.
Hey, you learn something new every day.
I will say this. I'm glad Stetson Bennett's not winning the award. I'm glad he got invited to the final because here's a guy walk-on quarterbacks, we said, and every single year, and Kirby Smart basically admitted it, we tried to give his job away every year.
Yep, until he took it.
and he kept winning it back and winning national championships now and maybe 2 in a row. So
yeah, I mean, that's a big thing people forget. Like, think about this, right? In the history of this format, there hasn't been a repeat winner. Georgia's looking to be the first team to do it, and they have a really good shot at it.
Listen, John, you may not know this. I'm one of the biggest Patriot fans you'll ever meet. Bill Belichick never spoke the words Tim Tebow before that draft. I guarantee you. He had no interest in Tim Tebow. McDaniel's just a bad coach and bad player evaluator. He's a great offensive coordinator.
I think that I believe they're the second team. I thought I was listening somewhere that TCU's the second team to be that is not ranked in the preseason top 25 to make the playoff.
Yeah, I want to say, geez, I don't know who it was, but it might be. I wonder if it was Michigan State.
It was somebody. I feel like there was a second team.
I have to check that out. Alan's pretty good with these things.
Yeah, I know he is. No, I know he's pretty good with that. But I felt like I heard, or maybe I was thinking about maybe 2 teams that weren't the AP top 25 and
a girl will champion. Oh gosh! All right, what's this last one here? Nope, Tebow got used to Tebow, man. Gosh, what parting shots you got tonight? I know you're going to be on. Let me give you a little. You and Alan a little.
Some love.
Some love. Jim's going to be on with Alan on the Wednesday night roundtable with Alan Perales on the Let's Talk Sports Network, and you can also catch Jim in a lot of his own material there as well. And on my shows, yes, he will be on Sundays for hockey very soon, Rick. I promise. Let me get.
Fans, they want it.
Let me get through the. Probably. Before Christmas, we'll do this. We'll give
him a holiday treat. How about that?
Yes. Well, Christmas weekend. Oh, that's Christmas Day. I probably can't.
Can't do Christmas Day, man.
I might do a Saturday show that week. I don't know. I'll talk to you about it. But we'll get hockey back before the first of the year, and we'll stay on top of the hockey for sure. Anything else you want to throw at us? Any nuggets you want to throw at us to watch for before? We'll have you on here again next week, I think, Jim.
I think the biggest thing is always watch out who's leaving, who's sitting out, because that could change the dynamic. To me, I think the big thing for me is what Alabama team. I mean, we still have time to see, but what Alabama players decide to sit or don't sit because, they're not going to the playoff. So, I'm interested to see what they decide to do, because like I said last time, this happened, those players didn't sit out, and then they went on to win a national championship the next year. But that's something to always watch out for. Let's see what the coaching carousel is. Let's see what other guys are on the move, what guys sign, where they go. And it's just going to be, I believe it starts next Friday, first bowl games.
Yeah, well, next week we'll do some picks for the games that'll be played before the next Wednesday show. Yeah. So that's the way we did it last year, and we'll do it again this way. I'm remiss though, and I brought up at the top of the show, it's not like there's no football this weekend, because
Army Navy, baby,
the best game of the year, and Army Navy is Saturday. I don't know, 3:30 probably.
They're in the SEC time slot.
Yeah,
CBS.
And I love Jeff Monken and Army in this game. I'm a big Jeff Monken fan.
I've always been a big Jeff Monken guy. I got to see him. We're starting to play up a hockey again up at West Point, so we get to see them sometimes practice when we get up there. So I hope Army wins, keep it close. Navy's got a good team this year. So it should be a good game. Should be fun. Best rivalry in college football. Don't at me. So
absolutely.
Don't at me.
Well, Jim, thanks for popping. I know I kept you longer than I said I would tonight.
That's all right.
Thanks for sticking it out with me, and we'll talk to you again next week.
Absolutely. Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy Army Navy on Saturday.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim.
Hey, thank you. Have a good one.
You too. The great Jim Biringer from the Mad Radio Network. You can also catch Jim's hockey stuff on fullpresshockey.com. And he'll be on our Sunday stream of consciousness starting very soon, Rick, I promise. Let me get back to your comments here before we dive into some other. You guys can bring up any topics you want to talk about here the next 40 minutes. We'll talk some more coaching carousel. I want to get into a little bit of that, maybe the Heisman a little bit. Listen, before I go to your comments, I'll throw out a couple of things. I do think Matt Rule is a most important hire. There's been some good hires. I think Nebraska was the best job open this year. Don't care about Wisconsin. I don't care about Auburn. Auburn's got unrealistic expectations of winning championships. They're paying more coaches than any program in the country. Matt Rule is going to turn Nebraska around. Well, it may not be next year, and he's going to do it the right way. Probably not a quick fix with a lot of transfer portal stuff like Lincoln Riley did in USC. Maybe he'll go that direction, but I don't see it. I see him building a little more of a base there, not just one-year wonders, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So we'll throw that out there. And also, I think, again, Caleb Williams is the Heisman Trophy winner with Doug in second. C.J. Stroud probably falling to third, and I think Stetson Bennett is probably fourth, and good for him. All right, let's see what we got here. Still on Josh McDaniel. No, but he didn't. Belichick was not picking. Belichick never once talked about Tim Tebow. Never. The only time he ever mentioned his name is when he brought him into camp, and he might have even been on the roster for a few weeks after the Jets dropped him. Believe me, I wouldn't know if Tim Tebow's name had come up before that draft, and it did not. By the way, if you want to read a great book, read Ian O'Connor's. You're probably not interested in the Patriots like I am, unfortunately for you guys. The Dynasty, book by Ian O'Connor. Just finishing up. It's excellent. I've had it for a while. I had Ian O'Connor on the show and interviewed him here a year or so ago. Great book. You got to get Jim on when the Devils start hitting the skids. That's what I'm waiting for. I don't want to get him on when he can toot the Devils' horns. That sounds weird, huh? Devils' horns. Offensive, defensive lines dominate playoffs. I agree. Something to remember, though. TCU is not Cincinnati. There are big kids on that team, on those lines. I don't think they'll be able to compete with Michigan. I think they'll give Michigan a game. I think they would probably get blown out by Georgia. They'd even get blown out by Alabama. I'll give John DeLon that. But Alabama's not in. So, listen, the teams with the best talent in this Final Four are Georgia and Ohio State. And Ohio State's got a chance to get healthy. They got a month to get healthy. Almost a month. Well, they've got a month because they didn't play last week. And practice. Anything can happen. That's one of the reasons I don't like this big layoff is because some teams just come out really flat and bad. There you go. Auburn, unranked in 2013. Make sure you mention that to Jim Biringer because he called that out first, that there was a second team before TCU. Michigan State. Well, then now we got three. I thought Michigan State was unranked that year. By the way, that we could talk about the worst teams to make the playoff. I'm sure a lot of you guys are going to throw Cincinnati at me. I would argue this Michigan State team in 2013 might be the worst team ever to be in the playoff. In Philly, or what are we talking about? The Army-Navy game? Are they actually playing in Philly this year? They move the game around now, and it's, to me, that's a bit annoying. Well, maybe Pags will be there. Oh, which one? Oh, God. Which one's it? Which? Oh, my gosh. Did I miss something? I don't know. I don't know which one it was, Rick. Share it with me. He would not have been up. Tim Tebow is one of the greatest college football players in history. But he's just that. And you can think of a lot of guys in my lifetime, I grew up watching. John Cappelletti, great college football player. Great story with the Heisman Trophy and his little brother dying of leukemia and whatnot. Great college football player. Heck, what's the guy from Colgate? The actor, Ed Marinaro. Great college football player. He finished third, I think, in the Heisman race. One of the years Archie Manning won, I want to say, or not Archie Manning, Archie Griffin won at Colgate. He was at one time the NCAA all-time rushing leader. So I don't care. I know a lot of times we get into conversations on this show about college programs and how many guys they put in the NFL and blah, 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 blah. I don't care about that when I'm talking about college football and the game of college football. All I care about is, well, people get on coaches. Ohio State's never put out a quarterback that's ever been any good in the NFL. Who cares? That's not the quarterback's. That's not the coach's job at Ohio State or Alabama at one point. Well, I guess Alabama's had a pretty good run of quarterbacks, even going back to Joe Namath, Ken Stabler. But that's not their job. I mean, it might be part of the recruiting pitch. I don't know, and I do know. Obviously, if Georgia's putting 15 guys in the NFL draft, and Kirby Smart and his recruiters are using that when they're recruiting kids, but it's not their job to move kids along to the next level. It's their job to get them as good as they can be on the college level and play whatever system that program plays and win football games. That's their job. And they're very highly paid to do it. Don't forget, I would hazard a guess, and I doubt that I'm wrong, that in all 50 states, the highest paid state official is the football coach for the state university in that state. Maybe Alaska. It doesn't. Even Hawaii, I would say it's probably true. Auburn football, Jen DeLon. Auburn football's that girl that's an 8 but thinks she's a 10. Yeah, that's probably a good analogy. I mean, and maybe she is a 10. I don't know. I feel like there's a better, because there's times where Auburn's been a 10. But they want to be a 10 every year, and they can't be. They just can't be. Gene Chizik gets fired 2 years after winning a national championship. Same with, almost the same with Gus Malzahn. How much? And they're still paying both of those guys, and now they're paying Harsin to go away. How much are you going to pay ex-coaches? And I'm not sure about Hugh Freeze and the fit there, to be honest with you. I'm really not. Boulder better than Lincoln. What a mess in Nebraska. No, I don't agree with you there. Colorado's been a nightmare for 20 years. Nebraska's been bad for the last 10. I agree. But if I was going to try to rebuild one of those programs, Nebraska's a good place to do it. The facilities are top notch. If you can recruit the kids to stay home, you can get back to that Nebraska tradition. Listen, I think the Matt Rule is, well, I think, and I'll say it here, it may take a few years. I think Matt Rule will return Nebraska to their former prominence and again, college football is better when programs like Nebraska are good. I do get it. John, I don't know what you're not getting. I'm telling you it didn't happen. That Bill Belichick, and I know Bill Belichick is, Darth Vader. We understand. And anybody who believed, and even if he floated that, I'm going to tell you he didn't float the rumor. It didn't happen. It's a rumor that he started the rumor. That's what's the rumor. That's what I'm telling you. He didn't bring this up, and I don't want to keep talking about this forever because it's more NFL than college. But and by the way, even if he did float the rumor, you'd have to be a moron to believe that Bill Belichick was going to take him in the first round or the second round or any round. Because at that time he was only drafting tight ends. Some that went to prison. Guys, watch the show tonight. Jim will. Oh, you trying to sabotage my show here, Al? Just kidding. Yes, watch Alan and Jim tonight. They'll talk some hockey. There's no better authority on hockey than Jim Biringer. And if you're a hockey fan, which I know you are, CA, please check out Jim's writings on fullpresshockey.com. Sorry, guys, my voice is starting to go. That 30 minutes of sleep is catching up with all of me. Book suggestions. The Problem of Pain, C.S. Lewis. Good one. Man in the High Tower, I would say, is a great read by Philip K. Dick, by the way, as well. For getting off sports. According to one of the guys on ESPN National Radio, I don't care. ESPN, you know what? Here's the thing. And John, I can tell you again, as a Patriot fan, don't listen to anything ESPN reports about the Patriots. Because they get 75% of it wrong or they're making it up, one or the other. They've been shoveling the crap about the Patriots for 20 years now. And they never stop. And then they're never going to stop. And again, I wouldn't doubt that they're making the crap up themselves. So consider the source there. So again, that means nothing to me, man. I'll tell you. Whatever. Oh. ESPN knows it though, right? ESPN knows it all. That's why ESPN gets it all wrong about the Patriots forever. God, I don't want to talk about the Patriots. I said demographic. That's racist. Today it is, Carlos. I think Rick was probably kidding. But, it's offensive to point out certain demographics against others. I'm kidding. Best college football player, Reggie Bush. There's so many. He's a good one. Reggie wants his Heisman back, too, since the NIL went into effect. He's petitioned the NCAA a few times to get his Heisman back. It doesn't work that way. If the speed limit's 50 and I go 70 and I get a ticket and then they raise the speed limit to 70, I can't go back and get my money back. It doesn't work that way. Vince Young. Now, these are all great players. Listen, I'd argue Archie Manning might be the best college football player of all time. But you can go back in time. Red Grange could be the best college football player of all time. But you can't. It's hard to compare eras, right? There's a lot of Archie Griffin. How about Archie Griffin? Back-to-back Heismans. Who's got a better record than Archie Manning when it comes to that? Oh, Rick Sherlock, I was referring to Floridians. Anyway, well, again, you can't refer to a group of people without offending them, Carlos. Just like the Mets signing him to sell more tickets. What? Oh, Tebow. I must have missed his whole comment. And he wasn't playing. Well, he did play on their Florida teams. And he was in Binghamton when they finally got rid of him. Auburn was 10 in 2000. Was a 10 in 2013. Yes, they were. But they won also in 2000. Didn't they win in 2000? Didn't they win in 2017? 13 was Chiswick, correct, Alan? I'll get to your comment, John. I see you probably got another Belichick comment up there. Auburn National. Let's hopefully that's enough. Oh, crap. I didn't even get close. Auburn. I thought they went in like 2017. Oh, sorry. 2010 was Chiswick, I guess. 2013 was Gus Malzone, which you'll probably already have up there. John DeLon. Back to college. Nebraska was getting all their linemen out of Texas when they were good. Well, the area. I didn't necessarily mean Nebraska. But the Big Eight was very good in the Midwest and the Southwest there. Oklahoma recruited, obviously, Texas very well as well. When they were good, and now they have to go to 5 states. Well, that's the problem with this whole realignment thing, right? It screws up recruiting. It screws up everything. Traditional rivalries we've talked about forever. We don't care about that stuff anymore, though, right? We just don't care. Oh, what's this? 5 states from east to Pennsylvania. I mean, who's going to go? Yeah. Well, right, exactly. Going to the Big Ten was the worst thing that Nebraska ever could have done. I guarantee you, if they had a chance to have a do-over, they would have stayed in the Big 12. Especially now that the money's going to be there. Well, it won't be there like the Big 12s or Big 10's getting. Big 12's never going to get that kind of contract, but they got a pretty good contract here this last time. Ricky Williams, no. Again, if we're talking about running backs, you guys tell me how you can put any of these guys over Archie Griffin. How do you put any running back in the history of college football over Archie Griffin when he won back-to-back Heismans? And don't tell me he didn't do anything in the NFL, because it's not relevant. Yeah, I had my years mixed up. 2010, 2013. One was Chiswick, one was Gus Malzone. Cadillac Brown, who did a great job, by the way, I thought, in the interim. There were a lot of people, and John, maybe you can speak to this more than I, because again, I will certainly capitulate to you on all things SEC, most things SEC. There was a decent contingent of Auburn people that were pushing for Cadillac Williams to get that job full time. He didn't do a bad job, but I don't think they were ever going to go that way. I wonder whether Hugh Freeze is a great fit there or not. Smacks of Gus Malzone too. There's our Canada does have a military. It's called the United States Army, isn't it? It's a joke. CA, make sure you tune in once we get Jim on, and watch the hockey. Watch Alan's show tonight at 9:00 on YouTube, I believe, right, Alan, on Let's Talk Sports YouTube page. I don't know where else it's airing. Alan, you can put that up and I'll post it up. But Jim is a good hockey guy, even though he's a Devils fan. I'm going to give you the same argument. All great players. I don't see a back-to-back Heisman anywhere except Archie Griffin. I'm going to stick to my guns and say Archie Griffin, the best college running back, at least of all time, if not football player. He did play in the SEC. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow had the single best season in NCAA. Well, that's fine. We can, but I'm talking about best college football player, through his career. And I would say some of the running backs that have been brought up had as good a year as Joe Burrow had. Now, he did lead them to a national championship, which really kind of puts him over the top. I agree with you. But I'm going to stick with Archie Griffin, man. Back-to-back Heismans. I think it matters for something. Did Cadillac stay good? Because Cadillac's, from what I can see, and again, John, you can weigh in here anytime. He seems to be a classy individual and well-liked in that Auburn community. And who knows? Maybe he'll get his chance here at some point. Well, that's the problem. The decision makers were not behind Cadillac, obviously. That's a good point. That's the danger, John, and all you guys, I guess. I think I've talked about this in other sports, and it applies to all sports, right? The danger of firing somebody in mid-season is that the guy you hire gets hot, and now you're kind of stuck with him. And he isn't, as John said, he's a good fit in the interim, but not long-term. Cadillac just seemed, I watched an interview with him at some point after he assumed the interim position, and he just seemed like a really bright football guy and a classy individual. One man's opinion, from a 15-minute interview. I see he'll be asleep. You know what? I probably will be as well tonight. I'll go watch our taped Jeopardy with my wife, and off to bed I will be, because at 63 years old, I don't operate on 30-minute sleep very good. So am I part of the demographic that had a problem with Tebow not being able to kneel for his religious? Personally, I don't know why we're getting into this. How did we get into this? I don't have a problem with either one of them doing what they did myself. I mean, I watch football. I don't watch what guys are kneeling and who cares? I never cared what Tebow had to say. I never cared what Kaepernick had to say. I don't care what any of them have to say. I'm here for football. I'm here for baseball. I don't care about any of that crap. Who cares? I don't care. Really don't. And Tebow certainly wasn't, it's certainly different. There are different demographics on both sides of that, by the way, for sure, Rick. And again, people can have their opinions about that too. But you know how many people I've heard? I laughed my ass off, excuse my French, because you know how many people I saw on Facebook who were never, ever going to watch the NFL again because of all the stuff going on with the protests and blah, 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 blah. Guess what? Every one of them seems to know what the scores of the games are and what happened, and they just happen to flip through when a great play happened because they're never watching football again, but they're all watching. Have the courage of your convictions. If you want to say it, then follow through. If you're not, then stop, shut your pie hole and freaking watch the games. That's all I do. Who cares about that stuff? Listen, I have very strong political beliefs. I don't let people get into them on my shows because that's not what this show's about. If I wanted to have a conversation about Colin Kaepernick, we'd have one. Or any political issue. And I have very strong beliefs, but you know whose they are? They're mine. I don't go plastering them all over Facebook because who cares? Nobody cares what I think. They barely care what I think about They barely care what I think about sports. It'll be on the Community of Sports page. Is it? Oh, okay, good. Join that group, by the way, guys. It's a really good community of, and I know Alan's one of the admins there. And yeah, put it in the group chat and we'll get it. Alan, you're doing something when you put that show up. You got to make it shareable so that I can take it and share it to TGI Sports Talk. I need it shareable. And when you're posting it, they're not shareable. What do you got here? I believe it was mostly a small contingent of fans that wanted Cadillac to be the coach. Again, I don't think, obviously, it wasn't a huge contingent, and it certainly wasn't the influential people, or he'd be the coach today, right? I like Hugh Freeze. I like Hugh Freeze, but I just got a bad feeling about him at this university. I don't know why. CA with the thumbs up for something. Yeah. Jim Brown was the greatest lacrosse player of all time. And a great college football player. But again, I got to pick somebody. I'll pick the guy who won back-to-back Heismans. All great players, by the way. I don't mean to disparage any of these guys. All the guys you've brought up. Great college football players. All of them. Hold on, I lost my screen here. All great players. I just pick Archie. Back-to-back Heismans. How much? Nobody's got a better track record than that. Alan, some interim coaches aren't that good either. See, Jeff said, no, I know. Well, that's a special circumstance in that regard. And some coaches do really well. Look at Steve Fisher with Michigan. Was it Steve Fisher? I think it was Steve Fisher. Bill Frieder took a job at Arizona State. The university fired him, and he took his team to a national championship as the interim coach and did a pretty good job coaching that team for another decade or better. So sometimes it works out in the long term, but I think CA's point's right, and so's Alan's. Sometimes interims don't work out in the interim, and if they work out in the interim, they don't work out long term. Rick, they both did what they wanted, and they did not last long in the NFL. You know why? Here's again, and this I'll approach this from a football standpoint. And again, this is an NFL show, but they're two college stars. Well, Kaepernick wasn't. You know why neither one of them lasted in the NFL? They couldn't play. They were no good. Kaepernick was a Harbaugh found a way to exploit the pistol, got him to a Super Bowl, but the league caught up with it, and they found out Kaepernick couldn't throw the football with accuracy. Same for Tim Tebow. Not good players at the NFL level. That's why neither one of them is playing. Anybody thinks anything different? Simple. Hugh Freeze at Auburn. Let's stick to college, guys, please. Hugh Freeze at Auburn makes me think that somewhere at Auburn there's a piece of fecal matter being thrown at the team. Hugh Freeze guy. Listen, I think it's amazing. When did he get fired at Mississippi? Wasn't it just 3, maybe 4 years ago? To go to Liberty, rehab his reputation as quickly as he has, and got himself back to a major football program, I think is magical. He's a good football coach. Guy's had a few problems off the field and even, with the NCAA. Don't forget that part of it either. This wasn't just about escorts phone numbers being in his phone. With some other problems here at Mississippi as well. What else has been going on here on the you guys can continue to comment, and we can go into the Tebow thing. I'm not trying to tell you guys I don't want to do it, but I'm just over that. I'm over it. Neither one of them are going to play again, and neither one of them should be playing. Probably neither one of them should have been playing when they played. What do you got here? John, it's just a trash being thrown by angry Tennessee fans. What else is going on in the college world? Interesting. Couple guys that are back. Scott Satterfield. I find Cincinnati's hiring of Scott Satterfield perplexing. This is a guy. Now, Louisville didn't finish with a bad season. I understand. But this guy was this close to being fired just 2 months ago. So I was a little surprised to see them go so quickly to Scott Satterfield. Maybe it'll be the right move. But I thought they might have had a little bit more of an extensive search. I know you can't wait forever in these situations because of recruiting and the transfer portal, and things move really fast in college football these days. But I'm a little surprised that they went that way. I'm not surprised that Jeff Brom went and took the Louisville job back to his alma mater, where he was a really good quarterback. The team wasn't all that good. You would think it would be a step backwards. I guess it's not a step backwards. Going to, Purdue and Louisville are probably on the same plane, both in Power 5 conferences. Jeff Brom did get a bump in salary. So that's, interesting. I talked about Matt Rule. Luke Fickell, he surprised everybody. Nobody saw that really coming. When he stayed last year, you would have thought he'd be there for a while, especially with them heading to the Big 12 next year. But he decided this Wisconsin job was, and getting into the Big 10 was where he wanted to be. And we'll see how that works out for Luke Fickell. I'm not so sure that this Wisconsin administration fired a coach with a really good record in Paul Chryst. And I know things had gone downhill a little bit, but I don't think I find it kind of interesting that they maybe it's not the best situation for Luke Fickell. Tom Herman, former Texas and Houston coach, back in the game at Florida Atlantic with Willie Taggart getting fired, the school that Lane Kiffin put back on the map. Speaking of, black holes of college football, Florida Atlantic was that before Lane Kiffin. You guys think he can't coach? He can. Jamie Chadwell from Coastal Carolina going to Liberty to replace Hugh Freeze. That doesn't seem like a huge jump. Now, I don't know what the salary difference is. Jamie Chadwell has done some great things at Coastal Carolina. I feel like this is a lateral move at this point. Liberty's program, Hugh Freeze had done a great job of propping it up, but doesn't feel like anything more than a lateral move. I meant to get in this with Jim, and we will at a later date, but Trent Dilfer getting hired at UAB is one of the more interesting stories in this offseason. No head coaching experience outside of high school. No coaching experience outside of high school. We talked about Jeff Saturday getting a job in similar ways. Well, he was also a drinking buddy of the owner, but Trent Dilfer, interestingly enough, getting that job. We talked about Dion, and there's really no jobs to fill. There's only a couple. Purdue now needs to be filled with Jeff Brom moving on. North Texas, after moving on from Seth Luttrell, after playing in the conference championship game and losing this past weekend. Western Michigan's looking for a coach after firing Tim Lester, and Stanford needs to replace. Kent State also needs to replace Sean Lewis, and of course Stanford. Very interesting job, the Stanford job. It's a tough place to coach, but they've had some very good spurts of really good teams throughout history. Going back into the late 60s, early 70s, Jim Plunkett going to the Rose Bowl. Really nothing to speak of all through John Elway's career there. They were a 500 football team, basically. 7. I shouldn't say that. 7-5 or a couple games over 500 every year, never competing for national championships. But then Jim Harbaugh came in there and really turned that program around. David Shaw kept it going. And the last few years have kind of taken the luster off of that program. There are a lot of guys, and we'll get into this comment here, Alan, your next comment. Spencer Sanders leaving Oklahoma State to the transfer portal. There's a bunch of guys. I don't think I have it open right now. And we don't have a lot of time left. But there's a lot of good quarterbacks, a lot of good players, again, already in the transfer portal. JT Daniels is in for the 3rd time. He's going to his 4th school. This is what's wrong with the portal. Just keep moving around until what? You just keep pulling the lever on the slot machine until you hit 777s. Freeze was fired from Ole Miss in 2016. Was it that long ago? Wow. Yeah, it doesn't feel like that long ago. That's funny. So who was? Because Kiffin hasn't been. Oh, Houston Nutt must have been there in between Freeze and Kiffin. Yeah, it felt like that. Boy, time flies. That's going to be 7 years ago soon. I'm old. I don't know how old you are, John, but 6 years now feels like 6 days. I always thought that Tom Herman deserved another chance because I kind of agree with you. And I think Steve Sarkisian is seeing some of the problems there as well. I thought Tom Herman was a really good football coach. I thought he would do well at Texas. Did wonders at Houston. And he certainly deserves another chance. And I think he'll probably – here's what I think, John. I don't think he'll be at Florida Atlantic more than a couple of years. I think he'll have a couple of good years there. Similar to Lane Kiffin, he'll turn himself into another Power 5 job. Someplace that's got a better fit for him than Texas. Professional sports is supposed to be a privilege, the likes of Vic and many others. Again, these are different situations, though. I mean, I can't compare Vic to – I can't compare what Vic did to, what Kaepernick did. I mean, what Vic did was – look, I'm not going to compare the two things. I would say Vic should have been banned, yes, for life. But, some of the other stuff. Listen, again, when I tell you Colin Kaepernick never played in the NFL again after his protest is because he can't play football. Look at some of the people that played. Michael Vick was allowed to play. Ray Lewis killed 2 people in Atlanta or was complicit in it, and he was allowed to play. The league is full of women abusers, gun-toting thugs. So if Colin Kaepernick could play, he'd be in the league. It's simple as that, guys. Don't let the air out of footballs, though. To no. Cade McNamara's in the portal. Yeah, he went in a couple of weeks ago already, or as soon as he announced he was going to go in it anyway, when it opened. Not surprising, lost his job to J.J. McCarthy there. Fairly or unfairly. McCarthy's a better fit, and he's more athletic, and he gives Michigan a better chance to win. That's who plays. Houston Nutt was before Freeze. Man, Matt Luke. Boy. So Houston Nutt, that's the last team Houston Nutt coached, correct? Or did he go to Arkansas? Now I'm wondering if he went to Arkansas after Ole Miss. Time is an elusive concept for me these days. Well, we're about out of time, guys. Another hour and a half flies by. Great stuff. Thanks to the great Jim Biringer. Thanks to you guys. John, I hope you know I love you, buddy. I love having you on, and I love the fact that we can. This is what the world and. And I tell Rick Sherlock this all the time, and the regulars on my show, and I'll tell you, John, we may have had the conversation already. This is how life should be. We should be able to disagree, and at the end of the day, say, "Hey, John, have a great week. I'll see you next week. Let's have some fun." Good to see you later, John. Thanks for coming in. So that, to me, listen. Sometimes I'll disagree just to disagree. Very rarely, though. What you see with me is what you get. Sometimes I'm right. Sometimes I'm wrong. I always got an opinion. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk right here on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network. We will see you later, guys. Have a great weekend. Look at Rick out in Florida. Have a great time, Rick. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.